Thank you. Actually, I've come here to learn rather than to teach, because I want to learn what it takes to build a good professional army that is respected and loved by the people. This is the kind of army I want our Burmese Tamador to be, the kind of army it was meant to be when my father founded it back in the 1940s, early 1940s. Of course, to get rid of the British. But not because we didn't like the British, but because we loved freedom better. I think all of us have a right to be free. That is what human beings are made to be. We want to be free to assert our own identity, to be able to follow our conscience, and to live in a world where we are the equal of all of us. The reason why I came to Sandhurst is to find out what leadership means in military terms as well as in human terms, because you cannot get away from the fact that soldiers are human beings as well. The very first British military man that I felt I got to know was General Slim, because I read his memoirs when I was quite young to try to get to know more about the war in Burma. And I liked him because he liked my father. It's a good reason for liking somebody. And he made the point that the reason why he liked my father was because he could do business with him. That also I like. A military should be about doing its own work. Every organization in the land must understand what its duties are, what its responsibilities are, and what is not for them to do. That is very important. Over the last several decades, actually over the last half century, which is a long time, I think none of you cadets are anywhere near that age, our military has become politicized. This to me is not a desirable development. It was not meant to be that way. When early in the days of the newly fledged Burma Independence Army, my father said, this was in Burmese and I'll translate it into English. It doesn't sound quite the same because it rhymes in Burmese and it doesn't in English. But what he said was that the country should not be the servant of the army. The army must be the foundation of the country. That is exactly what you are trying to teach people in Sandhurst. You serve to lead. We had a small discussion this morning as to whether to serve to lead was the same as to lead to serve. And we came to the conclusion that it is not the same, and it is better to put serve in front of lead, because the essential thing is service. Service that is rooted in strong principles. You have to understand what service is in order to be able to serve correctly. I said earlier that the first British military figure with whom I became familiar was General Slim. And I want to talk a little bit more about him because in a book about the Indian Army, I find A Matter of Honor is the title of the book, he was described by Philip Mason as a complete man. I thought that this was the greatest compliment that any man could be given, that he was a complete man. And Philip Mason wrote in this way, his success as a general was not so much because he was a brilliant tactician or a strategist, as because of his moral and human qualities. He was a complete man, an integrated character, following a straightforward course with modesty, courage, energy, and resource. I agree with this assessment of a complete man. You can be a complete man whether you are a military man or a civilian. And what we need in our country is an army that recognizes the worth of civilians and the importance of civilian authority over the military. All of you here are trained for leadership, but what I find most interesting is that all of you here are trained to be leaders under a civilian authority. This is something that you are taught perhaps not so obviously, but this is the training that you receive every day, that although you are trained to be leaders,